there have been plenty of intriguing sound bites all week. You heard from Brian Gutekunst earlier in the week. Aaron Rodgers will be the Packers quarterback for the foreseeable future. And as I pointed out, if we're all going to be dead by Sunday potentially, the foreseeable future may not be all that far off after all. Here's how it got started. First was the report that traces back to our good friend Paul Allen, voice of the Vikings, who heard from a very reliable source based upon what I've been able to gather, and I've talked to many people throughout the course of the day. He caught wind of this effort by the 49ers to trade for Aaron Rodgers. Now, I didn't know when it happened. I put on my hat with the little sign in it that says reporter, and I found out it was last night that offer was made by the 49ers to the Packers and rejected by the Packers. And obviously, Aaron wanted it to go through. 49ers wouldn't have bothered if they didn't think that Aaron would embrace the possibility. Rodgers wanted it to go through. It didn't go through, Charean. That was the first domino. That was just 6 hours ago. The world has changed dramatically since then. Let's just look at this before we get down the Aaron Rodgers wormhole. The fact that the 49ers gave up what they gave up to move all the way to number 3, and they're supposedly set on what they're going to do with the 3rd overall pick, the fact that they would try to flip that last night for Aaron Rodgers either speaks to genius or idiocy. I don't know that there's a middle ground.
No, that's exactly right, Mike. And I think they traded up to draft a quarterback, but then they thought this might have become possible. I don't know. You know, it almost seems like the 49ers have completely botched this thing from the start. And maybe they haven't. Maybe they've known all along who they're going to be. I don't know how it's going to work out. It'd be interesting to see what they say when this thing is done. But if they actually traded up to try and get Aaron Rodgers and could get him, I think it would be genius. Now, I don't think they get him. I don't think the Packers would trade him to the 49ers. I don't think they're going to trade him to an NFC team when they trade him. And I do think this is a win case, not an if case. When they trade him, I think it's going to be to an AFC team and not an NFC team, Mike. But intriguing that they would offer the number 3 pick and more for Aaron Rodgers last night.
Jimmy Garoppolo was part of the package. Obviously, you can't get that deal done unless Garoppolo takes less money. The Packers aren't taking on a $25 million salary for Jimmy Garoppolo. So that was dead on arrival. And the Packers, I'm told, don't feel compelled to get a quarterback out of this transaction. They're ready to turn to Jordan Love if they do move on from Aaron Rodgers. And my understanding is, and this isn't 100% in concrete, but I think the Packers would have taken Kyle Pitts, the Florida tight end, if they had emerged with the 3rd overall pick in the draft. So you'd have Pitts, you'd have Love, you'd have Devontae Adams, you'd have the running back whose name for some reason has escaped me. Aaron Jones. How can I forget Aaron Jones? It's too crazy of a day. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, they know who we mean. Regardless, that's how it got started. So that is what sparked the frenzy by reporters to add to the story, because that's how the game works. Big story lands, it creates an aftershock, and then another earthquake comes after it, Charean. And one last point on the 49ers, because this really does seem dysfunctional to me. And again, maybe it's functioning at a level so high, I don't get it. We'll get back to that. Let's focus on Rodgers. So then the report came out that multiple teams had called the Packers about Aaron Rodgers. Now, multiple means more than one. We know that the Rams, reportedly, according to Sam Farmer, called before they traded for Matthew Stafford weeks ago. The Packers denied it because why would they admit it? There's a certain must not tell the truth dynamic to some of the things that happen in the NFL, because if you give it credence, it takes on a life of its own. But that's how this started to take on a life of its own. It goes, Glazer reporting multiple teams were interested in Rodgers, and then Schefter with the thing that really took it to a next level, that he's told people within the organization he doesn't want to be with the Packers. He's disgruntled, as opposed to being gruntled, with the Packers and wants to be traded. And that was the thing that poured the rocket fuel onto the fire, and then it went from there. But that's when it all went from the 49ers just, by all appearances, catching a wild hare and taking a chance to, whoa, this is something deeper than the 49ers. The 49ers thing was a symptom of a deeper problem, and the deeper problem is Rodgers wants out.
Well, and frankly, Mike, I hope multiple means 12 to 15 teams, because that's how many teams could use Aaron Rodgers. And I said all along, I would not be in a rush to get a quarterback if I'm in the quarterback market, because you're going to have Rodgers, you're going to have Wilson, you're going to have Deshaun Watson at some point become available. I want one of those guys. I mean, I'm not so sure I wouldn't want an Aaron Rodgers over a Trevor Lawrence. Now, we know that's not going to happen, but I'm just saying there's no quarterback in this draft. I realize he's 37 years old. I get that. But if I am a team that's willing to win, I want Aaron Rodgers. It's like the Bucs last year. I feel like he's the one part that can put me over the top, get me to a Super Bowl, perhaps win multiple Super Bowls. He was the best quarterback in the NFC Championship game last year, Mike, and he didn't get it done because the Buccaneers had a better team than what he had.
Well, I'll agree to that to a certain extent. This still is a guy who only has won one Super Bowl in his career, and we can go around and round on whose fault it is, but the bottom line is Tom Brady had 6 before he went to Tampa and went 1 for 1. I don't have the same faith that you plug Aaron Rodgers into a new team and it suddenly all falls together, because I still think at some level he's partially to blame for the fact that the Packers have not won more than one Super Bowl. We can say he doesn't have the help around him, but we can also say he doesn't have that transformative capacity that Tom Brady does to bring a team together and lift it to higher levels than it otherwise would rise without that extra influence of a quarterback who is a gifted leader on top of being a highly gifted passer. So, you know, something you said there really brings into question the Tom Brady dynamic, because I tweeted at one point this afternoon, how many teams has Tom Brady psychologically wrecked in the course of the last year? The Patriots, who are completely out of character, desperate to get better, spending like never before to be good enough to compete with Brady's Buccaneers this year when the Buccaneers come to town, and to be better and more relevant in January like Brady's Buccaneers will be. The Seahawks, Russell Wilson wants more involvement in the team, wants greater say, wants out if he doesn't get what he wants. And now Rodgers, who had kept it in check. See, Rodgers, I think, was trying his damnedest to walk that tightrope between agitating for something but not being perceived as the bad guy. Now he's risking being perceived as the bad guy based on everything that's coming out today, but this is another product of the Brady factor. And something you said, Charean, about, you know, if the Jaguars would actually want Aaron Rodgers over Trevor Lawrence, the guy who possibly is an answer for 15 years, over the guy who's an answer for 4 years at most, it just shows you what Brady's done to mess up the mindset of so many teams. You've got teams that are pedal to the metal, win now, and will take a handful of years with Rodgers over 15 years with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if the Jaguars would do it, but I don't think it would be an easy question if they had the opportunity. And it just shows you how dramatically the game has changed, and it all traces to Tom Brady.
No question. The game changed last year, Mike, with Brady doing what he did and leaving the Patriots and going to the Bucs, and to some extent Phillip Rivers leaving the Chargers after so many years and going to the Colts. It didn't quite work out. And I'm curious, if the Bucs hadn't won the Super Bowl this past year, would things have changed for Tom Brady? Would he have wanted to go somewhere else to have a better chance to win a Super Bowl? Because we know the tension that might have been there mid-season when the Bucs weren't doing so great and Bruce Arians is publicly criticizing Tom Brady. We don't know what the inner workings of that was, but the way it played out, those questions have gone away because they won the Super Bowl. Same thing with the Packers. If they had won the Super Bowl over the past 2 years, look, they went 13-3, 13-3, and lost in the title game each of the last 2 seasons. If they win one of those 2 Super Bowls, I think we're having a different conversation today. I think if Brady hadn't won the MVP award, we're having a different conversation today, because I think he's already traded. So many things played out over the last year, Mike, that changed, as you said, all these dynamics around the league of what teams are looking for, what franchise quarterbacks are looking for, and how things have developed. It's just changed in the last year right in front of our eyes.
And back in January after the NFC Championship, when the Packers lost to the Buccaneers, a game they could have and should have won, that's when Rodgers dropped that turd into the punch bowl and then acted like it wasn't there when he was on Pat McAfee's show 2 days later. It was there. It was there, and it was multiplying over the course of the last 3 months. And now we are, sorry for the graphic nature of that metaphor, but we are where we are. And it's all blown up quickly. Other nuggets that have come out today: the Packers decision-makers traveled to California to meet with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers agent met with the Packers. They're trying to work out a new contract. They can't get it done. And hey, I reported back in January and people thought I was nuts that Rodgers wants a new contract. He did. That's part of it. It's not the root cause. But the fact that they haven't given him a contract is just another example of why he's frustrated with the organization. Not Matt LaFleur, the head coach, but with the organization. I was told he simply doesn't like anyone in the front office for a variety of reasons, whether that's Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, Mark Murphy. I've said for weeks, Charean, that Mark Murphy has been trying to manipulate Aaron Rodgers into a sweet spot of piss-offedness where he's mad enough that he's going to show up and bust his butt and be an MVP caliber player, but not so upset that he wants out. Well, if that's the case, Murphy overshot it because now Rodgers is sufficiently pissed off that he wants out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mike. But let's back up a minute. Does Aaron Rodgers like anybody? We know his relationship with his family, so he has a lot of strained relationships everywhere, right?
I'm leaving. Charean, you take over. I can't be part of this. That was Charean Williams. Lest there be any confusion, Aaron Rodgers, and I will produce my phone for inspection by the court. There was no advanced cajoling or instigating by me to get her to say that. She blurted that out on her own with no influence from me. But
I did.
I don't even know what to say. But he's been there a long time. And there are shades of what happened with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And instead of Brady getting to the point where he couldn't take any more of the coach, Rodgers has gotten to the point where he can't take any more of the front office. And after 16 years, and I think this is the shelf life of, and shelf life isn't the right word. This is where the fuse meets the bomb. And the fuse was lit a year ago, first night of the draft. There's a certain poetry to the fact that this is all coming out now. There's a certain Godfather 1 quality to, while the baby's being baptized, the leaders of the 5 families all get killed. It's all happening at that time. The anniversary, sort of, even though it isn't exactly 1 year, first night of the draft, that's when Rodgers is unleashing his revenge on the Packers. And he's smart enough to do it, Charean. I wouldn't be surprised if he's been planning this for months, if not an entire year, back to the night that they sent him rushing to a big bottle of tequila.
Oh, it's a great point, Mike. This is not a coincidence that this was leaked today. This is maximum exposure. It drives interest. It's going to overshadow the draft, no doubt about it. And it's going to encourage teams to make that call to the Packers. Instead of the Packers sitting in that draft room right now thinking about who they're drafting in the first round, I guarantee you they're getting phone calls going, hey, what's it going to take to get Aaron Rodgers? We'll give you this, this, and this. They are getting those calls right now. There's no question about it. If they're not, these teams are stupid not to make that phone call. Again, he's better than any guy in the draft that you can get. He's better than any free agent you're going to be able to sign next year. He's the quarterback that you want if you're close to winning. If you're perhaps the Broncos or the Raiders or one of these teams that have been mentioned, he's the guy you want, not one of these other guys. So they're being lit up right now, and it's for these reasons, because Aaron Rodgers and his agent have released this information to people, and it's just going and going and going, Mike, and this carousel is probably going to go all night.
See, I don't know that they deliberately planted the first piece here, but they knew it was going to come out. The 49ers' effort to trade for Aaron Rodgers. And then once that's out, that's when the other stuff gets mobilized and it takes on a life of its own. And it doesn't look like Aaron Rodgers is the one, either directly or through his agents, who caused this thing to take off. But that's where it currently is. Another reporter just texted me, I'm giddy that this is all finally coming out, because some of us have known it's there. And what's always irritated me is Aaron Rodgers wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to be upset. He wants to be manipulative. He wants to be petty. He wants to be vindictive in a very passive-aggressive way that has no footprints. And then when people see the footprints, they're the buttholes for seeing the footprints that he put in the sand and pointing them out. And I am glad this is all coming out, because it's been there. And no matter how hard he's tried to deny it, he's at the point where he can't take it anymore. So now, Charean, this is the next spin it forward. Where does he get traded? You alluded to this earlier. Okay, here's my understanding. Here are the key factors. Number one, Packers are not going to trade him to an NFC team. Brett Favre, 2008. What did they do? They traded him to the Jets. What was in that Jets trade paperwork? A clause that said if the Jets traded him back to the NFC North, 3 first-round picks became the compensation. So he's going to an AFC team most likely. Second, West Coast team or close to it. That's what Aaron Rodgers wants. Now, if his options completely dry up, would he go farther east than Green Bay currently is? If he wants out, he may have no choice. But West Coast is the preference. And, as I said earlier, the Packers don't need and don't necessarily want a quarterback in return. So the 3 teams that were on his wish list as of last night, I'm told, impeccable source, not to be confused with our usual, guy who just happened to hang around and overhear someone talk about it at the bus station. 49ers, Raiders, Broncos. And if I had to throw a dart and guess, I'd say if the Broncos want to make the move, if the Broncos want to do it. And Rodgers is only a year older than Peyton Manning was when they signed him in 2012 as damaged goods. And Rodgers isn't damaged goods. They could get 4 or 5 years out of Aaron Rodgers. The question is, does George Payton, the GM of the Broncos, want to do it? Well, Peyton comes from Minnesota, where he knows very well what Aaron Rodgers can do. He saw it week 1 in his own building last year. Rodgers shredded the Vikings. So it's Raiders, Broncos, unless the 49ers can come up with something before they use that 3rd overall pick tonight to get a deal done with Green Bay, which Rodgers would welcome. He'd welcome a trip home to the Bay Area. I think the Raiders and the Broncos are the other 2 teams to watch.
Yeah, and Mike, you know what I would love to see? It'll never happen, but I would love to see straight up a Russell Wilson for Aaron Rodgers trade. I would love to see that. That would be fantastic. We're never going to see it, but I think it would be great to see what each of those guys could do on the other team. How good could those teams be? And they've both been very good teams. They've both won Super Bowls. So it would be exciting to me to see. That's not going to happen. So the teams mentioned, let me ask you this. Do you think, you talked about this a little bit, that you don't think that he is going to be like Brady and automatically go somewhere and upgrade him? Do the Broncos and Raiders give Aaron Rodgers a better chance to win a Super Bowl than the Packers do right now as we sit here?
Well, he's got to deal with Patrick Mahomes. I tweeted this earlier. Bad news. It looks like we could miss out again on an Aaron Rodgers-Patrick Mahomes game because they're due to play this year. That is game, not 17th game played, but the 17th extra game. It is Packers and Chiefs. We could miss out on that, but we could pick up on 2 Rodgers-Mahomes games if he lands in the AFC West with the Raiders or the Broncos. And Patrick Mahomes said, well, I see draft weekend is going to get pretty interesting. It's going to be very interesting if he ends up playing for Las Vegas or Denver. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, that's not where I want to go. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I want to stay in the NFC. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, yes, I want the 49ers. I think I have a better chance to win a Super Bowl if I don't have to compete directly with Patrick Mahomes. But you know what? If you go to San Francisco, you're competing with Matthew Stafford, although that's been no issue for Aaron Rodgers over the last decade, all due respect. You're competing with Russell Wilson, which has been an issue from time to time for Aaron Rodgers. And you got to deal with Kyler Murray. So either West is going to be a challenge. But I just think Aaron Rodgers at this point would welcome that because he's tried it over and over again to get another Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. They haven't given him enough help, and he's emboldened by this Tom Brady phenomenon to get to a place where he won't be treated like an employee. That's what it all comes down to. Are you going to treat your franchise quarterback like an employee? We talked about this earlier in the week as it relates to Kyler Murray. Are you treating him like an employee? Or are you treating him like a member of management? And I feel like the Packers have been too far on the treat Rodgers like an employee scale. And the fact that they drafted his replacement last year when they were a Super Bowl ready team, they could have used that 1st round pick and the 4th round pick they packaged with it to go up and get Jordan Love, to get 2 pieces that could have been the difference makers in the NFC Championship game. A difference maker like Antoine Winfield was for the Buccaneers in the postseason. A rookie who comes in and makes a difference right away. We'll never know because they wasted those 2 picks on someone who did nothing to help the Packers get to the Super Bowl last year. So I think that that's one of the big reasons. It's a culmination of years and years of actual or perceived disrespect, and he's done. The bridge has been crossed. And now the question is, Charean, if they don't trade him, what's he going to do? Is he going to show up? Is this another Deshaun Watson? Is this Deshaun Watson 4 months after Deshaun Watson made his power play. Could be. Could be. If they don't trade it,
absolutely.
Could be.
Well, and he also has potentially Mike Jeopardy hanging out there. He could just retire and say, I'm not going to show up. I'm just going to go be the host of Jeopardy. You can trade me or you can keep me, and I'm not going to play for you. What are the Packers going to do then? They're going to have to trade him. So if he's made it clear today that he doesn't want to play with the Packers, if he's told the Packers that, their best move today is to trade Aaron Rodgers, the best deal they can get, and move on from Aaron Rodgers and hand it to Jordan Love. I mean, that's been the plan all along, right? They were going to hand this thing to Jordan Love. It's the reason they traded up to draft Jordan Love last year, to hand him the baton and say, hey, you're our next Aaron Rodgers who took over for Brett Favre. So do it. Go trade him. Hand it to Jordan Love and move on and get all the picks you can get. This could be your Herschel Walker type deal, trading him somewhere else and getting a ton of picks and upgrading your talent. And you can, if you think you can go win with Jordan Love, go win with Jordan Love. Who cares if Aaron Rodgers is in the NFC or wherever he is? Trade him to the best place that'll give you the most compensation and move on from him.
And see, Sims and I have been talking about this. I thought, and I think Sims thought, that Aaron Rodgers was going to wait until after this season to implement that plan. And I think he's stewed and simmered and percolated. And I don't know if this is a grand plan or it just kind of happened when he didn't get the contract that he wanted. I think there's a deeper issue that could have been resolved, and the contract that he wanted would have resolved it. The contract that forced the two sides together for the next 3 years. And maybe they trade Jordan Love. You know, there have been flashes of that. Maybe the Packers trade Jordan Love. Maybe the Packers trade Jordan Love. It was never really reported, but there was enough noise, enough chatter that maybe that would have been the alternative. If they decide we're going all in with Aaron Rodgers, we're going to move on from Jordan Love, we're going to declare Rodgers the victor, and we're going to renew our vows with him. If they would have done that, everything would be fine. But they didn't, and they haven't. And Rodgers, as we get to the first night of the draft, the first draft since they traded up for Jordan Love, here comes some Game of Thrones stuff. I was comparing it to The Godfather. This may be more like the Dragons going crazy on Green Bay.
Yeah, Mike, and you go back a year ago. I mean, right? This is when it all started, and it doesn't sound like to me they communicated with Aaron Rodgers very well when they decided to pick Jordan Love, and that's what it goes back to. That's when this all started, really, and not winning a Super Bowl on top of that, just kind of compiled, and Brady winning the championship, and everything that's happened in between, then not getting the contract, and no one looking over your shoulder as the MVP and seeing Jordan Love standing there. So all those things happened, Mike, and this just seemed like the end now to me. And I'm with Sims. I really thought he was going to play one more year. I was convinced that he and Russell Wilson both would play one more year, and then you would get the three quarterbacks traded. And like I said, I thought the teams were going to have some regret that have traded for quarterbacks and drafted quarterbacks this year. They could have regrets not getting in on the Rodgers trade, a Russell Wilson trade, and a Deshaun Watson trade, because all of those guys could become available over the next few months. And so I think some of these teams are going to have regret that they didn't get in on some of these trades. You look at a team like the Rams. If Matthew Stafford doesn't get it done, they're going to have some great regret that they traded for Matthew Stafford so early and didn't let this thing play out.
You mentioned earlier the possibility of Aaron Rodgers for Russell Wilson, and I think you could do that straight up. I think you could. I think that balances out. If anything, maybe the Packers would have to add a little more to it. I don't know. Right now, let's just say it balances. My point is this. John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, is a Packers shareholder. At one point, it was believed he was going to end up back in Green Bay as the general manager. If he's concerned that Rodgers could end up with the 49ers, don't you at least have the conversation internally about mobilizing, about Russell Wilson to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers? Now, again, the Packers want to go to Jordan Love, but if Russell Wilson falls into your lap, the Jordan Love plan gets put on hold because you didn't know you were going to get Russell Wilson. So I can't rule that out either. Now, it's not on Rodgers' wish list because it isn't as easy of a landing spot as it would be in San Francisco or Denver. It's a little bumpier in Las Vegas because Derek Carr's there, but Derek Carr's not Russell Wilson. I can see why the Seahawks wouldn't have been on Aaron Rodgers' wish list, because you just assume too complicated to make it happen. But maybe not at this point. Maybe John Schneider says, hey, I'd rather deal with Aaron Rodgers on my team than deal with Aaron Rodgers on the 49ers. And if this Russell Wilson thing is going to blow up anyway, let's get 4 years out of Rodgers, because all we were going to get was one more year at most out of Russell Wilson. So I can't imagine Schneider not at least exploring the possibility, making a phone call to somebody in Green Bay and having the conversation to see if they can work it out, because that's far preferable to competing with Aaron Rodgers in your division for the next 4 years.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. And again, I would love to see that. That would be my number one trade I would like to see happen, where I would like to see Aaron Rodgers end up and where I would like to see Russell Wilson end up, because those teams have been so good. And those quarterbacks haven't gotten them there to a Super Bowl in many years. So maybe if they switch quarterbacks, each of them will have a chance to win one over the next couple of years. Let me ask you this, though, Mike. What do you think throw Seattle out right now. If you're Broncos or Raiders, what's the compensation? What's it going to take to get Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I mean, the Packers said no to the 3rd overall pick and Jimmy Garoppolo and more stuff from the 49ers. Again, they got no use for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's an albatross on this deal. He's not a sweetener by any means. It's the Jared Goff and the Matthew Stafford package, frankly. Yeah. So maybe you start by saying, keep Garoppolo. We don't want him. We'll give us somebody else. Give us George Kittle or someone else, Nick Bosa and the 3rd overall pick, although that may be too much. I really don't know, because we haven't crossed that bridge. We've been talking about trades as it relates to Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. Young guys with a lot left. This is older guy with 4 years at a high level, maybe, but who knows? With Tom Brady, again, another reason why Tom Brady has screwed everything up. It screws up our perception of how long a quarterback can play. It screws up your assessment of whether you want a 10-year answer or a 4-year answer. And I think multiple first-round picks. I don't know that it takes 3. I think that the main thing is the Packers have to get through the 5 stages of grief fairly quickly and get to acceptance. This is something that may have been sprung on them for the first time very recently, and they may be in denial right now. They've gotten through anger. They're in denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. If they can work through that like Homer Simpson once did after he had the venom of a poison blowfish and thought he was going to die, if they can do that quickly, then a trade can happen this weekend. But they have to be thinking about where this goes if they don't trade him, because it very well could be Aaron Rodgers says, see you later, Green Bay Packers, I'm out if you don't trade me, and then they got nobody. That's the reality. Yeah. That's the Deshaun Watson scenario. Before the legal issues arose, I think the Texans came to grips with the fact they were going to have to trade him because they're playing this out. We're either going to trade him and get something in return, or we're just not going to have this guy. Now, at least the Packers have Jordan Love, but still, it's better to get something in return for Aaron Rodgers than to have Aaron Rodgers just walk away.
And the quicker this happens, Mike, the more they get. So in other words, I think if it happens tonight, they get more for him than if they wait till tomorrow, the next day, or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months from now. I think they need to do it tonight. I'm going to put those odds at 50-50. Are you taking the over or are you taking the under?
50-50 of Rodgers being traded?
Yep, tonight.
Tonight, under.
Yeah.
Under.
Okay.
But not by much. Not by much. Lots got to happen. Lots got to happen.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely it happens after tonight and before the end of the draft for future first-round picks. I think that's, especially because the Packers, like many other teams, are going to value future first-round picks better. Because all of a sudden, the Packers, if they trade with the Broncos at 9, if they trade with the 49ers at 3, I mean, they're thrust into this, guys that we haven't maybe looked at as closely as we should have because we never thought we'd be picking in this stratosphere. So I think that's part of it too.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.